story. I overdosed on drugs and alcohol, on pills and whiskey almost 13 years ago, and ended up in a coma and got sober after that. The first show I ever played was the weekend after I got out of rehab, and I started playing guitar within a year after that. And so I wrote this song a couple years ago, but it's a song that I wrote about how when you have challenges in your life, it's easy sometimes to think like, well, I'll just get rid of this element and then I'll be okay. And a lot of the time you can set something aside and then realize that if you don't get to the root of what's causing the behavior, that these things will manifest themselves in other parts of your life. And so I've just, since getting sober, I've just been working a lot on just trying to figure out how to be able to function sanely on this planet. Things are really difficult for everybody, and I think a lot of the time people isolate and don't recognize the fact that almost everyone else is having a very, very hard time. And I think that's been one of the extremely important parts of this movement is putting our faces out there and our stories out there and saying, you know what, like, this hardship is huge and it's touching a lot of us, and people that you never knew are being affected, and just sort of bringing us together in that way. And I just think it's so important that people recognize that if you are struggling and just don't isolate yourself. Reach out to somebody. Don't ever be ashamed to ask for help. There's people who can relate. There are people who understand. Find a community, find an individual, find someone you trust, and let them know what you're experiencing. Because if you sit alone in your pain and in your grief and in your hardship, that's when it's going to destroy you. And so we all have to be together and come together in that. So this is just a song I wrote 2 years ago about needing help. It is year 10, and I'm a baby again. I need my friends, like I did back then, to help me stand, side by side, hand in hand, one day at a time, hand in hand, side by side. 'Cause if it's not one thing, don't you know it's another? You can be sober and not recovered, and a soul that's hurting just keeps on searching for ways to fill the emptiness. But the pit is bottomless. You can't fill it with hugs. You can't fill it with drugs. You can't fill it with booze, can't fill it with food, can't fill it with isolation, can't fill it with self-mutilation, can't fill it by always running away, can't fill it by finally deciding to stay. If you're like me, an addictive personality, then you've got to admit that you're powerless over everything you're compulsive with, even if you feel like you reveal a lot, but there's still things you conceal. Stop living for pretend, live for real, just let it go so you can heal. It is year 10, and I'm a baby again. I need my friends, like I did back then, to help me stand, side by side, hand in hand, one day at a time, hand in hand, side by side. It is year 10, and I'm a baby again. I need my friends, like I did back then, to help me stand, side by side, hand in hand, one day at a time, hand in hand, side by side.